Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Ranty Flat Earth, Spurs Chemo, Rumpus, Preston, Milo and Chocolate Saying. Good to have you all.
Good to be here, good to be here.
Do you want me to finish this hypothesis business, alternative null hypothesis for the Cambridge experiment?
Well, just for the audience's benefit, the question that's on the table is, according to Rumpus, what we have on screen is a hypothesis. And I've asked Rumpus, if this is indeed a scientific hypothesis with a cause and effect, to give it me in both null and alternate format. Off you go.
Rightio. So here's the hypothesis in mathematical form, as most hypotheses are in science. And so we have three causes and one dependent result, the force. So the question is, in an experiment, how do you measure the force, and what do you decide to make your independent variable out of the three that you could pick and vary them?
Hello, so, don't kick me, please. Don't kick me.
Right. Okay. Right. So we then design an experiment that measures force, and the way to measure very small forces, because these are very small, is with a torsion bar change. So
sorry, Rumpus, you seem to have completely ignored my question entirely. Please give me the current hypothesis, which is on screen in both its null and alternate format. You have entirely ignored the question and are now detailing the experiment. My question is about the hypothesis. I would like to hear it.
10 seconds from getting there, Nathan.
Right.
So we've now established that we're trying to measure the force. We've got three variables we can play with. So the hypothesis you would have in your experiment with this torsion bar, which measures the force, is to change the mass or any one of the three variables you can play with, and then see that in the null hypothesis, when you change the mass, the bar...
Right, you've given me a load of nonsense again. I gave you 10 seconds, which is how much you said you needed, and you still have not given me this hypothesis, in quotes, in a null and alternate format. You haven't done that. You're now detailing what you will do in the experiment.
Nathan, I'll do it fast for you. GM1 times M2 over R2 equals F. That's the hypothesis. That's the
R squared, Milo. R squared.
Okay, R squared. Sorry, R squared. And the null is GM1 M2 over R squared equals 0.
Yep.
Do you understand? That's the null.
Sorry.
It's
a scientific
so simple.
Hypothesis takes the form of an if and then motif. If this...
If you're an idiot, yeah.
Excuse
if you're
me.
An idiot,
sorry, why are you now
grade,
talking over me and ad-homing me? A scientific hypothesis takes the form of if this, then that.
Okay,
this,
so you want me to do it like
then
that? Then
not
I'll do it
that.
like that.
Why are you doing
All right.
this constantly talking over me shit? What's your problem?
Because you're wrong.
Right, so a null and alternative don't mirror each other.
Look, okay.
Sorry, you just asserted that I'm wrong. Now I've reasserted what you have claimed is wrong, and you've ignored it.
Because the hypothesis could also be an equation like the one that you're seeing.
No. A hypothesis is a scientific prediction. It predicts...
Yes, this is a prediction.
Excuse me, I was in the middle of talking yet again, being talked over. This is what you assholes accuse me of doing. Really?
This is a prediction.
It predicts a force.
No, a scientific prediction would be a hypothesis. It would take the form of if this, then that. If not this, then not that. It's a mirror. One mirrors the other. One says that if you vary the independent variable, you will get the effect, the cause. Therefore, you have established the cause. The null says that it won't.
And you think I'll let you finish?
Maybe. So
Why
I'll
did-
try again.
Why are you talking over me? Again.
Because you're taking too long to speak. I already know what you're getting at. If GM1 times M2 over
Sorry, what's
R
GM1?
squared...
It's if this, then that. If independent variable, then dependent variable. Not letters and numbers.
Then F. That is the equation. If GM1 times M2 over R squared, then F.
So
If GM1 times M2 over R squared,
so if
then
GM1.
no F.
So what's...
That's
hold
the
on.
null.
What's GM1?
Oh my god.
G is the universal constant of gravitation. M.
Oh, sorry. If the universal constant of gravity. So you're saying your independent variable now is
a
the
constant.
universal
That doesn't
constant of
vary.
gravity. Sorry,
It's
I'm
a
talking, Rumpus.
constant.
I'm talking.
constant.
I am talking. So
a
you're
constant.
if gravity
Yes,
as a
the
constant.
presumption.
Oh God, I'm not going to be allowed to get a sentence out of my own show because these assholes just want to talk all over me. This is what I get accused of. Apparently, Reds is scared of coming in here because apparently I do this while these assholes do it non-stop to me. Right. So according to Milo, if the gravitational constant. So now we've got a fourth. So apple, torsion bar, twist. How many more have we got? Because now we've got if gravitational constant. So your independent variable is the gravitational constant.
So, constant.
No, it's a constant, you idiot.
Sorry, if is the variable.
It's
No,
a
G is
constant.
not a variable. It's a
dumbass.
constant.
Oh, so we've got a non-variable variable. If
No, it's a
gravitational constant was what you've said, so your independent
It's
variable
not an independent
is
variable.
a constant. So it's not a variable.
It's not an independent variable.
You're
It's
talking over me again. It's because I'm destroying your argument. You've just given me a hypothesis, if gravitational constant, and then told me that it's not variable. So, if gravitational constant's not a valid hypothesis, then, Milo, because if gravitational constant isn't variable, my friend.
It's quite simple. There are three variables and one constant.
Every time I get to this, just have Rumpus chime in. We've got three variables.
I mean, what do you understand? There are three variables and a constant in this hypothesis.
Yeah, this isn't a hypothesis. This is a mathematical formula. A hypothesis in science would establish the independent and dependent variable with a presumed cause and effect.
No, that's wrong.
Yeah, that's right. You can tell me it's wrong all you like. I don't care. Yeah? This is not science. This is mathematics. If it was science, you'd be able to give me a coherent, null, and alternate hypothesis. But what you've given me is if gravitational constant. So if the variable of a constant...
Click on that. No, you
Just
said
nonsense.
that, Nathan. You're lying now.
Yeah, I
We're
just
being
heard what he
consistent.
said.
You're being a
If GM1... I asked what G was. He went, "Oh my God, it's the gravitational constant. What kind of idiot are you?"
The ropes.
I think he understands what we're saying.
Yeah,
he
I
just
think
wants
he does.
to.
And
he
he's
just
Oh,
making
wants
really?
to,
such ridiculous arguments now. I think he realises
like
that you
he's
have three
off the point
courses.
already.
No worries.
He's
Yeah,
off
I
the
just
point.
like
lost
to
it.
talk to
I mean, this
Rumpus.
is what happens
just
when
like
we
to talk
answer
to
every one
Rumpus.
of Nathan's
Yeah.
questions.
I just
Yeah,
like
you
to
know
talk to
what-
Rumpus.
Yeah, this is
Hello.
what
He's
happens
getting so desperate now. He's getting beyond stupid.
Well,
I think he
well,
knows.
we're-
Milo
I think
can't
he
shut
knows
up,
it's
so let's
wrong.
kick Milo
Oh,
out. Let's see if we
definitely.
can have a one-to-one conversation with Rumpus. So Rumpus, I'd like you to type out on screen both the alternate and the null hypothesis for this mathematical formula.
Okay. Let me get. By the way, it's alternative, not alternate.
Just do
Right.
it.
Okay. Here we go. Let me get something going up here with a note thing on it. Just, bringing up Word. Give me a moment. Let me share this. Just change what I'm sharing. Change my thingy. Here we go. Word. Right. Okay. Hopefully you can say Word. So, the alternative hypothesis. Can you see what I'm writing? About to need a bit bigger. See that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Right, so the alternative hypothesis. Whoops, God, not doing very well. Am I? Hypothesis.
Sorry, just out of interest, can you just tell me which one the one you had on screen was? Was it the alternate or the null? The one that was on screen previously?
Alternative. It's the alternative. Well,
Which
the
one?
alternative-
I've got
well,
a
I'm
cold,
about to write it
Rumpus.
down here.
Sorry, Rumpus. I've got a cold. So, yeah, just tell me
Right.
which one is the one that you showed us a moment ago, the null or not?
That is the alternative hypothesis. So I'm writing it down here. And here's the null hypothesis. You can see all this. I'll make it a bit bigger again in case you can't. Let me make it a bit bigger. Ah, you bastard. I'll make it. It's not going to let. Okay, let's make. Bloody use the point size.
I don't see if and then in there.
Okay, well, hold on. Right. Well, okay. Well, there's. Well,
hold on. Just get the null down.
Okay, let me right. So it's a bit big now. I just scaled it. Well, wait, right. Okay, hold on. It's just. I'm not used to scaling with Word. I'll make it reasonable size. Right. Okay, so there is the alternative hypothesis, and there's the null hypothesis. And
it's the same. We've got the same thing on both lines.
Oh, sorry, you're right. There we go.
Deary me.
Oh, you don't like science, obviously, Ranty.
No, at least get it right when you tell us that you've done it.
You couldn't do anything like this, Ranty, in your dreams, so you've got no position to criticise.
Yawn, yawn.
Yeah, that's what I know. Science bores you, right? And maths, right? So the cause and effect. So if you want to express it in a cause and effect relationship, you would say if you have this combination of things happening at the same time.
If I have this,
if that, then
what's that? Hold on. What's that?
This thing here.
Yeah.
So
tell me what that is. Not if this GM1M2/R up 2. Tell me what that is. If what? What is the independent?
I have the masses like this.
What is the independent variable?
Okay, in an experiment. Okay, you want to do it in an experiment. Okay.
In this hypothesis.
Okay, all right then. So we now have to design an experiment, and I'm now.
No, we are at hypothesis. I want a null.
Okay, the hypothesis.
And
okay,
an alternate.
Okay, here we go. The null hypothesis is that the combination of these two masses, a particular distance apart, will not create a force. That's the null hypothesis.
If what, then what? If independent variable, then dependent variable. Write that down.
Experiment. So, okay, in an experiment, that means
that's a hypothesis. Write down the if and then relationship.
Right. Okay. If I set a mass m2 and a distance r squared.
Sorry, hold on. If independent variable, that's two things.
These are my controlled variables.
Sorry.
So these are my controlled variables here. If you look up at the definition of the experiment, you'll see the controlled variables you can set. So I'll set there we go. I've set the controlled variables to be that. So I've set those two. And then in my independent variable.
Sorry, hold on.
I would make
if I M1. Controlled variable set mass m2 and distance r2. So what is the presumed cause?
But the presumed cause is the combination of these effects causes a force.
No. What is the single independent variable establishes? Stop talking over me.
Okay.
What? Stop talking over me. What in this hypothesis is the presumed cause? Singular, independent variable, please.
Right, now you see there, you're talking about what you do in an experiment. There's the hypothesis, and then there's...
A hypothesis is an expression of what you will do going forward. An experiment is a hypothesis test.
Exactly, it is a hypothesis.
Right, so let's get the hypothesis. Let's not worry about the experiment.
No, well, you've got two things. You've got the hypothesis, and then you've got the experiment to test the hypothesis.
Yeah, a hypothesis is what you establish when you go forward to do, in the future, an experiment. First, we establish the hypothesis, then we go forward to experimentation. So we don't need to worry about the experiment yet. Let's just establish the alternate and null hypothesis, please.
Okay, and that's what I've done here.
No, you haven't. What is the independent variable?
No, you see, you've mixed up. The independent variable is only something that happens inside an experiment. We haven't done the experiment. You said we were not.
A hypothesis establishes the independent and dependent variable, the cause and the effect. It should be written and clear in the hypothesis so you understand exactly what you will be doing when you go forward in an experiment. The experiment and what will happen in it is established in the hypothesis. So I don't want you to tell me about the experiment. I want you to establish what the independent and dependent variable are in this hypothesis.
This is what you don't understand, Nathan. You only have an independent variable in the experiment.
Yes, and the experiment is the expression of the hypothesis. So I expect to see the independent variable detailed in the hypothesis.
Or every detail you need is in the hypothesis. There are three.
That's correct. So tell me in this hypothesis what the independent variable is.
You don't have independent variables in the full hypothesis.
Yes, you do. You absolutely do. That's what a hypothesis is. A hypothesis is a scientific prediction. It predicts the presumed cause of the effect. It is the relationship between the independent and dependent variable. That is what a hypothesis is.
No, that's part of the hypothesis.
No, that's a hypothesis. The cause and the effect. The independent and the dependent variable.
That's the part of the experiment you test, but that doesn't mean to say
an experiment is the expression of a hypothesis.
It's the apparent part of it.
No, they are two separate things. First, you express what you do, what you presume your cause is. That would be in the hypothesis. You establish what you think will happen if it is the cause, and what will happen if it is not. Alternate and null.
Right, consider this, Nathan. Suppose I jumped on your foot.
No, I don't want your asshole examples of you jumping on my foot or punching me in the face. Thank you very much, you complete wanker.
Things that are going to cause you more pain on your foot or more force. One,
I couldn't give a crap. I am asking for your independent variable in this hypothesis. A hypothesis, an expression of what you will do going forward in experiment, will absolutely contain an independent and a dependent variable, and I want you to tell me which one is which in this.
Right, but do you understand in an experiment, like me jumping on your foot, there are two things that would affect...
I'm not talking about an experiment, I'm talking about this hypothesis on screen now. And I want you to break it down into its independent and dependent variable. You don't seem to want to have done it. You haven't done it. And it's the original question I asked. It's the opening of the show. I asked you to format this into alternate and null. And you have not yet done it.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
Do it then.
You keep on stopping me. Right. So there are three components.
No, you're not typing it. I'm going to pop you on mute until you've typed it out. It seems like Rumpus doesn't understand that it's going to take an if and then statement format. If this, then that. What I see isn't if this, then that. I see there are three components. You're making statements. Why aren't you giving me the independent variable, Rumpus? I don't understand.
Watch, I'm going to get kicked. Watch, here I go. Somebody's going to kick me.
Well, we can only assume it's Preston because he's the only one in the hangout and he hasn't said anything, so let's just kick Preston out. Yeah, he has. In fact, I'm pretty sick of this. I've got nothing but absolute aggravation from Rumpus while he doesn't give me an alternate and a null. We lost the whole hangout.
Right, so I'll see, dear me. Right, so I'm trying to write out, it's a bit of a fiddle. So when in an experiment, I actually then have to pick on an independent variable, one of the three that I can pick on. So then I say,
then it's not independent.
Then it's not independent.
Then it's not independent, Rumpus.
What's not independent?
If you've got three.
I'm only varying one.
Yeah, but you've got three that you say contribute to the... You say three contribute to the cause, correct?
Correct.
Well, that's not...
But I'm only changing one.
Rumpus!
Only one is an independent variable.
Rumpus! Then
you know what controlled variables are?
Rumpus!
You know what controlled variables
Rumpus! Then it's not... Rumpus! Then it's not independent.
I'm only changing one. It is independent.
Oh, right. So there's no other cause. This is the sole cause. The single independent variable is the cause, right?
Right. That's like saying that when I jump...
Yes or no? So the single independent variable is the cause then, yes?
No, it's not the cause. It's the combination.
So it's not an independent variable then?
So the independent variable I'm using in this experiment is M1.
M1 would be the cause then. So tell me what M was. M1 is... and then formulate that into the hypothesis. If M1, then what?
Okay, here we are. If M1 varies, then it will cause a change in the deflection of the torsion bar in proportion. Because in the formula, it's the direct linear proportion. If I hold these others constant, the only thing, if I change M1 and the others are constant, like the M2 and R squared are constant and G is constant, then that means that the force, the alternative hypothesis up here, if everything is constant except M1, that means that there'll be a direct relationship between the increasing M1 and the force that changes. So all I need to do in the experiment is to increase the independent variable M1. The force, which manifests itself in the rotation of the bar, is my dependent variable. So all I need to do is to measure the deflection of the bar, compare that in my graph. So I'll draw a graph along the bottom of my independent mass 1, and my top of my graph will be the force going up, and I will see there's a linear relationship, and I'll say, ha-ha, there's a relationship between M1 and the force. And then I can say, okay, but what about the others? I could say, oh, look, perhaps M2, changing M2 will cause a... need to be checked as well. So I'll then go and change M2 in another experiment, second experiment. I'll make that my independent variable. And then I see if the force changes as well. And then if I'm really clever, I can change R. So I hold M1 and M2 constant, and I'll make R my independent variable in this experiment. And I see if the force changes inversely proportional to the square of the distance. And when I've done all those three things, I then say, look, my alternative hypothesis proved to be true. The null hypothesis didn't work. So great, I've proved this as much as I can prove it. Although you can't prove there might not be other things going on as well. You've certainly proven the context of these variables.
Sorry, what was that last bit? You can't prove that other things are going on as well?
Well, it could be invisible green pixies doing it. This is why, Nathan, we keep on...
Sorry, it could be invisible green pixies doing it, but the point of doing science is to establish the cause of the effect. Do you remember
you saying affirming consequent? It's your favourite expression.
Sorry, if we are doing science, we are establishing, through experimentation, the cause. There aren't any other things. You've established the cause in your experiment. If you validate your cause, it is the cause.
Well, that's like saying like Einsteinian effects and gravity and Newtonian ones. We established what in our experiment seems to prove that this is the case, but then it turns out there are some complicating factors, like, for instance, that mass increases with velocity. There's no mention of this, the fact that the mass can change as a result, or being near a black hole or something. So
sorry, we are not talking about naturally observed phenomena again. You're talking about theories.
Well, we've observed black holes coming together and all sorts of things.
Excuse me. We had this yesterday. The medium of space you can't prove. And now we're going away from... Just scroll down. So currently, the alternate hypothesis doesn't look anything like a mirror of the null. So I'd like you to... Hold on! I haven't finished speaking. They're supposed to be a mirror of one or another. So if you... Currently, there's just a gap underneath a mathematical formula. And we have... Scroll down, please. Scroll down. Cause and effect.
Hello.
If I control variable set mass M2 at distance R2, independent variable, there are 3 components. That doesn't make sense. Independent variable, there are 3 components. Anyway, so we need to pick one independent variable. This isn't taking the format of if this, then that.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll write that out then. Okay.
But hold on, I've already asked you to write that out, and this is what you did.
Okay, well, let me. So in the experiment,
is it just me, or have we so far spent 23 minutes with you attempting to write out the alternate and null, and having written out this shite? Experiment, independent. So why is it that in the hypothesis you're talking about the experiment? It should just be a mirror of the null. It shouldn't be complicated. If this, then that. If this, not that. That's it. The alternate and null's really simple.
There we go. Here it is. Here, this is the if then. If I change M1, then the bar will rotate in proportion by 8 degrees.
Okay, so M1, excellent. So M1 is your independent variable. Hold on, Rumpus, haven't finished. Rumpus. So M1 is the independent variable, your presumed cause, correct?
No, the cause is this.
If and then. If independent variable, then dependent variable. Have you failed to formulate this into a hypothesis again?
No, because the context of this is this formula.
No, there's no context. If this, then that. It should be nice and concise, nice and clear. Yeah? If this, then that. According to you, if M1. So M1 is the if, your independent variable. Therefore, M1, presumably mass, is your cause, right, Rumpus?
No, it's the combination that come together as a cause. But this is
so you haven't established. So hold on. So you haven't established an independent variable in this hypothesis.
M1.
Oh, so M1 is the independent variable. Excellent. So M1 is the presumed cause then.
In combination with the effects that other
No, independent. What part of this word don't you understand? Did you want to look up what independent means, Rumpus? Would you like me to do it for you? Are you really this bad at English? Do you not understand what independent means?
But if these were not there, there would be no effect. Do you understand that?
I couldn't care less. I'm looking for an alternate and a null hypothesis from you that establishes the cause of the effect. If this, then that. If this, not that. Null and alternate.
So, Nathan, do you understand that things can have multiple...
You don't have to ask me anything. We're coming up to half an hour of you failing to give me an alternate and a null. Half an hour with you telling me this shite and writing out stuff that doesn't mirror itself and doesn't have an if and then relationship. And when it does, M2, you tell me that that's not actually the independent variable. It's not actually the cause.
Look, you're confusing...
I'm not confusing anything. Yeah, you've just told me if this. Scroll down. Let's have a look again. Scroll down. Let's have a little look. If I change M1, so you're going to vary M1, your independent variable, the presumed cause of the effect.
It's combination. It's the...
Oh, sorry. Why is it that you say correct? Correct. This is my independent variable. And then I point out that an independent variable is the cause, and you say no. No, I don't want this independent variable to be independent.
If you didn't have these other two bits, it would do nothing. If you didn't have it...
Sorry, is that your hypothesis? If we didn't have these other two bits, is the other two bits your independent variable? If the other two bits didn't exist? Because that makes no sense. That's not independent, Rumpus. You are a buffoon. You are stupid. You are scientifically illiterate and don't understand English. You don't understand the word independent because you are a moron. It is quite simple. Independent means independent.
You're an idiot. You keep on doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, because you're an idiot. You need explained to you. Don't understand. There are two things going on. One is there are multiple causes of things, and one which are controlled variables.
We're talking about a single experiment. You can't drag in other things in the experiment. You only have one independent variable. You have potential controlled variables, but they are not relevant to this specific experiment.
Here's a question for you. If I jump on your foot...
No, I don't want to hear this jump on your foot shit constantly, Rumpus. Stop it. Just type out the null and alternate. That's what we were asked to do half an hour ago, and you still have failed. You are a failure. Does it really take you half an hour to type out a full hypothesis? Wow, what a retard. Call yourself scientific. I'd expect you to be able to rattle this off in 2 minutes. And yet here we are, half an hour later, Rumpus failing to actually give us a hypothesis. What a retard.
There will be no pressure on your foot. So there are two components, both of which have to be present for me to hurt your foot. A velocity and my mass.
You haven't given me a null and an alternate.
But I can measure in an experiment how much pain you're subjected to by changing just one. But you have to have both together.
Yeah, that's why they're controlled variables.
Exactly,
yes. Not independent variables, not considered the cause in the experiment. Get it right, Rumpus. You're dealing with one experiment. Once you finish it, you can get other...
Rumpus, you asshole. He's not going to get away with rumpusing the entire hangout. I'm not going to spend half an hour with him failing to write out a full hypothesis and then just telling us constantly that you can have multiple variables as an independent variable. But then they're controls. But then they're part of the variation. Then I can vary. No. Just nonsense. Sick of it.
Well, he approached it completely idiotic. He keeps on dragging... He keeps discontorting the whole setup. You can only have one independent variable in one experiment. And then that independent variable is the cause of that experiment.
Exactly.
Once you establish that that experiment works, if you can, then you can make other separate experiments using the controlled variables of the previous one and turning them one by one in the independent variable. You have to do several experiments to prove the involvement in all of it. But in one experiment, you can have only one cause, only one independent variable. That's how it works. And I don't get that he doesn't get this.
He does. It just
Silly.
doesn't match the Cavendish experiment, which is pseudoscience bullshit circus sideshow experiment, as opposed to scientific. And he needs to explain it away because he needs it to explain pressurized system next to a vacuum to justify his space.
Poor Rumpus. How are you, Arwin? How are you, Arwin? You alright?
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, that was an hour and a half of god-awful nonsense, wasn't it?
No, it was. I thought it was funny. Rumpus showed that he really is not getting the concept of isolated experiments. He just keeps on wanting to drag everything in it as the cause. But yeah, once you deal with an experiment, you can't do that. You have to isolate everything else and just deal with the experiment. And then once you've actually proven it, that your independent variable is indeed the cause, then you can move on from that point.
Well, that's
just
it.
Keeps on convoluting.
Well, that's the end. Once you establish the cause, that's it. You can apply your knowledge to things.
Not necessarily. Then you can move on.
Well, move
you
on
can
to
make
what?
another controlled variable into an independent variable in a separate experiment.
But
And the original independent
Arwin.
variable that you've already proved to be the cause in that experiment, and turn that into a controlled variable.
Yeah, but
So it
then you're
requires
doing
a very much separate experiment.
Right, on something totally different, unrelated. Yeah, you can do different experiments knowing what you have established through systematic experimentation already. Absolutely. But then you're not doing the same experiment again and adding a new variable, because if you've gone through the experimentation stage, you've established that the cause is the cause. That's the end. You've got your cause. You know what causes the effect.
The experiment, yeah, but that doesn't mean that it is the overarching cause of it all. It simply is the cause within the experiment.
Yeah, the cause of the observed phenomena.
Multiple cause, combined cause.
No.
He's right at that. Not
he's
in an
not.
experiment setup.
Well, that's what we're talking
setup,
about.
There's
He's
only
saying
one
that's
cause
what
that
we're
you're
talking.
trying
Sorry,
to
I
prove.
just don't want to argue about something we're not talking about. We're talking about the Cavendish experiment. So yeah, that's what they're talking about. And in an experiment, you establish a cause and an effect in a hypothesis. You have an alternate and a null. And in the alternate, you say if it causes it, this will happen. If it doesn't, it won't, is the null. So you have a mirror of the two predictions. What will happen if the cause you presumed is the cause and does cause the effect? And if it does, it does. That's the end. You've got your cause. That's it.
Yeah, within that specific experiment setup, that doesn't mean that it is the end of the entire thing, though. It is simply the confines of that specific experiment. Sometimes things can have multiple involved causes, not experiment setup wise, but just you will need different experiments to prove all the causes by getting each controlled variable and turning them into an independent variable for a separate experiment. Because things can have multiple causes, but you can't use that in an experiment. You can only prove one cause in one experiment.
If something's got multiple causes, it's like the weather. It's like you can't tie down the cause of that effect because there are multiple variables. You cannot isolate the variable that causes wind.
You can isolate the influences one by one. It is doable, but that requires separate experiments.
Well, what you're talking about is scientific theory.
No, absolutely not. Scientific provable fact. Things can have multiple causes, but in an experiment setup, there can only be one cause for that experiment. Otherwise, it becomes a liability. It becomes not reliable enough.
No, you are.
It's
You're
very
talking about
concrete, the setup, but that doesn't mean that multiple experiments can be done to prove multiple causes to a certain phenomena, as it were.
No.
It requires separate experiments to prove each and every involved element.
You're talking about a scientific theory,
Control variable.
You're talking about a scientific theory which is built off the back of validated scientific experimentation. I'll just read out what it says on Wiki. So, a scientific theory is an explanation of an aspect of the natural world that can be repeatedly tested in accordance with the scientific method, using pre-identified protocol of observation and experiment. Established scientific theories have withstood rigorous, slip of the tongue, and embody scientific knowledge. The definition of a scientific theory as used in the disciplines of science is significantly different to the common vernacular of the word theory.
Right. But if you want, for example, to figure out the cause of weight or pressure in general, then there's two separate experiments that you can do. And in those experiments, you can vary the weight, the mass of something, and you can vary forces being applied. We're talking about pressure here. So, and then you will find that in both experiments, both the mass being an independent variable definitely is a cause, and the forces being applied, like acceleration, will also be the cause in a separate experiment. And then, yeah, you can pretty much conclude, okay, both experiments work out, so therefore both are causes. But it's isolated. In one single experiment, you can only have one independent variable. That does not exclude other involvements. And that's why they call those controlled variables. They are like independent variables, but in the singular experiment, they cannot be varied. There can only be one independent variable. That's what the controlled variable is for. And that is also stated in the scientific method. Can be multiple causes, basically, or multiple involved variables, but they must be controlled variable for the single experiment.
They are not causing the effect.
No, they are. You can prove that with separate experiments, that they are both.
Listen to Arwin, Nathan.
I just gave you the example.
No, you're talking about scientific theory, which is built off the back.
No. Scientific method. I just
rumpus.
Exactly described it to you.
Yeah.
The cause of weight. It's both mass as an independent variable in one experiment, and the forces applied as a controlled variable. And in the other experiment, then the forces applied will be the independent variable, and the mass will be fixed. It will be the controlled variable. And you will notice that the weight is directly affected in both experiments by the independent variable. So it's both true, but it just requires two separate experiments. That's scientific method. I know what I'm talking about here. But
okay,
yeah,
if you say so.
The separate occasion from the whole Cavendish experiment, because that is just, it's just highly dubious anyway. Like what they do, what they presume it is doing, and then, yeah, you just have to wait for a day to see some movements. And yeah, it's not magnetics or anything, you know. It's ridiculous. It's a flimsy setup. It's like just like the pendulum thing. But yeah, there can be multiple causes to an effect, but in a singular scientific experiment, there can only be one cause within that experiment setup, and that is the independent variable. And all the other potential causes are controlled variables, and you'd have to test them to be actually causes as well in separate experiments.
You're just reasserting what Rumpus has said.
Indeed.
No.
Yeah, you are.
No, he made a mess of it.
Okay.
He said there can be multiple independent variables in a single experiment, and that's just wrong. Cannot. So he mixed it up. It was very stupid.
Okay, well, I'm not going to change what I've stated about a million times. An independent variable is the cause of the effect. What you are saying is you can establish
it is within the experiment. It is.
Why are you
correct.
rumpusing me? I've let you repeat the same thing 3 times, Arwin.
All right.
Right.
You say what you
So,
want.
in a systematic experimentation, you establish whether or not you have identified the cause of the effect. Once you establish that it is the cause of the effect, you have your cause. That's it. There's not a second experiment that establishes the other cause. You've either established the cause or you haven't established the cause at the end of the experiment. If it's not the cause, then it's not the cause. If it is the cause, it is the cause. Not it is the cause, but there's also this other thing that's affecting it.
So you deny that weight is caused both by a force being applied, pressure, I mean, force applied and mass? Do you deny that?
What experiment are you talking about?
I just gave you the 2 examples in detail twice.
What? I didn't hear details of an experiment.
The cause to find the 2 experiments to find the cause of pressure.
Because.
Don't
When you get triggered, mate.
don't heckle him. Sorry, start again, Arwin. I'm not very well.
Right. So the cause of pressure. Now you take an independent variable, a controlled variable. The independent variable is going to be, in this first experiment, is going to be mass.
So the cause of pressure. So pressure is the observed phenomena.
Yeah. And the controlled variable is going to be force. So the force is going to be a set level. Then you're going to take a different, by the way, that would, for example, be an accelerating car. Right. So you're doing this experiment every time in an accelerating car at a constant acceleration rate. And then you're going to measure with a scale a certain mass. And then you're going to see, okay, there's this much pressure causing this weight or pressure, because scales measure things with pressure. You see, okay, this level of mass, like a chocolate bar, has this much pressure in these acceleration circumstances. And then you're going to take a bowling ball, do the same thing, and see, oh, look, there's much more pressure. So yeah, the mass is a direct cause of the pressure in the setup. So
That's
then you have
gravity
your
then.
cause. Oh, look, it's mass. But yeah, you could also do another experiment and just take one singular mass, the bowling ball, for example, and then accelerate at different rates. Accelerate not too fast, and you'll see, oh, look, the pressure is less. Then
So
you
you're basically
accelerate
trying to
really
explain gravity.
full on gas, and you see, oh, look, the pressure is higher. So yeah, that is also the cause. It's both the cause.
The mass of the Earth is the cause of the
No,
weight
not the
of
Earth.
the
Not
object.
talking just mass, not the Earth.
Yeah, but it's essentially the same, the way you was explaining it.
No. I'm
Yes, you
talking
did.
about mass, not
You
the
s-
mass of
mass
the Earth.
causes the weight.
No, pressure.
Right, okay. So your downward pressure
No, it's not.
that you
has
call
nothing to do with
gravity.
it. Has nothing to do with it.
Right, okay. Sounds like you're a baller, mate, I'll be honest.
Yeah, well, sounds like you're a vindictive little sniper.
You're just talking baller trash.
No.
That's
I
what
am
I'm
just
hearing.
defending scientific method here
Right, okay.
and
Well,
getting things right. That's what I'm doing. 2 causes.
well, I'm going on mute because I can't be bothered talking to you.
Oh, that's good. Do it. You're not of any use to me anyhow here, so you're just getting in the way as usual. So, but yeah, I just put my 2 experiments proving that pressure can be caused by both mass and forces being applied. 2 different scientific experiments, and they both prove that the cause of pressure will be both mass and forces being applied. So yeah, that's 2 causes in 2 different experiments. So
if mass, then pressure.
with a controlled variable of force, yes.
So if force and mass.
It is force, controlled variable, times mass, independent variable, is pressure.
So
the
you've
observed
got,
phenomenon.
So you've got 2 things.
No, that's a controlled variable. It's part of the scientific method. You can look it up if you want.
I know I know what a control variable is, Arwin.
All right.
But it's not part of your cause.
Yeah, it is. It is part of the formula. It is part of the system. You can't leave that out.
Right.
Because you can't.
In your example, you're saying you
have
apply
one
a
without the other.
force, a set force. That force could be the cause, right, Arwin?
Well, not in that experiment. Not if mass is the independent variable. So you can't vary it. You can't vary the force. The force has to be constant in that experiment.
Like I said,
to prove
so
that
mass is the cause.
Is the cause.
Right. So mass is the cause.
Sorry?
So mass is the cause. If mass,
exactly.
then pressure.
Right.
So mass causes pressure.
Yeah.
That's your end result of this. Mass causes pressure.
That is the setup of the experiment.
Right. And has it been done?
Well, could do it. If I have a car, I could do it. And probably people out there have done it. Yeah, it hasn't been done in a scientific official experiment. Or maybe it has. Maybe in the early days it was done.
Right.
With carriages, that kind of thing. This is like, it is like foundational physics, so that should have been done like in halfway the 19th century or something.
Okie dokie.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's just my point, and yeah, the Cavendish experiment, that kind of nonsense, it's ridiculous. It required the presupposition of R, all that crap. So it doesn't really matter what they get involved. As long as you get presuppositional elements involved, it's not going to work anyway.
Fair enough.
Right. So, thanks for having me back, by the way.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Jimbo.
If I may, there are two words that someone made.
What?
Can't hear you.
Jimbo's been kicked.
How
What?
can someone kick him from the Skype?
Not on Skype. He's in the Hangout.
Oh, is he? Right.
Who's doing that? Hold on, let me open the back panel. Maybe there's somebody still left. This is weird.
I don't know, John Boy. I don't know why Nathan gives him a pass.
Where is he? Where's this hangout?
What, are we still here? We're still live?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're still live.
I'm trying to find the hangout that we're in currently. Right, I think this one is it. No.
So you're sticking to the story, Arwin, of two causes for one effect.
Not within a singular experiment, but when you combine the experiments, yeah.
I think we're kind of getting away from, the natural world. So what we're talking about, cause and effect, is why things fall, right? Not a device, that has been designed in order to, fit a model. Most of, what physics brings to the table is just something that is to support their model. So things in the natural world, Arwin, they have a cause and they have an effect, right? You would agree with that, or you disagree?
Things in the natural world? Well, it all depends on what you're going to claim to be the natural world, because what I understand that to mean is the natural world in opposition to the supernatural world or the metaphysical world. Things that are thought up can't be proven to be there, like outer space, that kind of thing. That is the supernatural world.
I'm not talking about supernatural. We're talking about the natural world, things that we cannot explain in the natural world. Yeah?
Now, the natural world is supposed to be anything that you can basically physically build or generate or do within the world.
No, not man-made, not
No, I don't think that has anything to do with it, really.
I don't know if you kind of mean like because humans are from nature and we build things, therefore it's like an extension.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
but
just
if
talking
that
about
was the case, then
We're
you
just talking
could
about
never.
natural things in the natural world.
But if
So
that
water,
was the
marriage,
case, you could never prove
what it
the
does.
existence of vacuum or anything, because that can only be made through machinery.
Yeah, but
So are you then just going
the
to
reason why this
ignore that exists?
pseudoscience part is because you're stepping away from the natural world.
No, I don't think so. I think that has
Well,
been.
yeah, you're saying in the
interpretation.
natural world there are two causes for an effect that we see.
Yeah.
Well, there isn't. We see something, we observe something, we say, what is the cause of that? Why did that happen? Oh, it was because of that. Yeah?
Yeah.
So there can only be one cause, not...
Yeah, in one experiment. But yeah, you did hear me explain the experiment, right? Proving pressure.
You haven't done this experiment. You've just given a hypothesis.
Yeah, come on, you know this works.
Really?
You know it.
So,
Yeah.
so
Don't
what
you?
what
I
parts-
explained it. Do you think that's not going to yield that result?
Sorry. Systematic experimentation to back.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you can get all nitpicky if you
Three
like,
words.
but you
Three
know
words in.
this will
Three
work,
words.
right?
Grumpuses the hell out of me. So you do systematic experimentation to establish if the null or alternate hypothesis is correct. So once you formulate a hypothesis, it isn't if this then that, and then you go, well, because I've said that this is the independent variable, then it is. You've also got the null, which says that you won't get the effect that you assume is your causal effect. So you have both. The mirror of your prediction is the antithesis of your prediction. It won't happen if I use this independent variable. That's why when you go forward, you establish which one is correct.
Because why questions have why did this happen because of this? You don't say why did that happen because of this, and this, and this, and this. That's not the reason why. We're looking for the why, right? The actual why. Not a few why.
Cause.
Yeah, the cause. There can only be one why. Right? Why did something happen?
No, I disagree.
So there's more than one whys.
Yeah, sure there is.
Yeah, you can
Give me
absolutely have
multiple
an example of why.
weather. So you can have more than one cause of the effect of wind, right? But then it falls outside of the scientific method. You can't isolate the cause of the effect. So it suddenly sits outside of science. That's why you have models of the weather. Limitations on hypotheses. The end result being models. Well, do we get the weather right? No, because we haven't established cause and effect through science. We just have models, best guesses, estimations.
You're circumnavigating the entire principle that I just explained to you. We're talking about singular experiments. You can do both experiments and you can prove the cause. Two separate causes, two separate experiments, both work out.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to round
say,
out for a
no,
quick break.
It's only one of them. But yeah, the other experiment worked out. So yeah, what are you going to do? You know? The assumption that there can only be one cause overall, and not talking like in scientific method, because in a specific experiment there can be only one cause as part of the experiment. But overall causes or influences, direct influences, you can't just say, no, that doesn't exist. Things can only be caused by one thing. That's ridiculous, because everything, all the effects in the world are pretty much chain linked. You can almost trace every effect back to what is causing this, what is causing that, and what combination of elements are causing each link.
Yeah, that might be true, Arwin.
That's how it's all structured.
Sure, but that then sits outside of science and what science can achieve, because science is studying the cause of an effect.
Yeah, but if you can then isolate every single chain in the link with a scientific method, prove that cause, and potentially prove other causes in other experiments of the same chain in the link, then yeah, you could definitely have multiple causes. You have to
No. You
stop
don't have multiple causes.
Look, if you're just gonna say no, science, it's just this, and the rest, it's all nonsense. Even though you're gonna have two separate experiments proving two causes, you're just saying no, that can't be.
There's only one reason
I've
why
gone through
things
this
form.
already.
Like one single reason why things form, not many different reasons.
What?
Things form. Gravity. Why things form.
Yeah, I'm not involving gravity or anything. I'm just talking about an experiment that I can actually prove. I'm not gonna roll in that bog again. I'm talking about scientific experiments right now and multiple causes. Okay, I'm not talking about gravity, because I already conceded I can't prove that, because I can't use gravity as an independent variable. So yeah, that's not what this is about. This is about multiple causes.
Right, then it's outside of the boundaries of science, Arwin.
No, it's not, because you can prove the causes in two separate scientific experiments.
Causes? No. You establish the cause in an experiment.
Sorry. Yeah, in one experiment, yeah. And then you do another experiment, pretty much the same, and you take the independent variable of the first experiment, turn it into a controlled variable. Then you take a controlled variable of the other experiment and turn it into the independent variable. And then you can prove, probably, if you thought it out right, that that is the cause in that experiment.
Right, well then
it's pretty much the same experiment, only you change the variable.
Cause. Once you've established the cause, it is the cause. There's no second experiment to establish a different cause. You've either established the cause or you haven't.
No, that's not true.
That's science. That's what it does.
That's a single experiment.
Yeah, to establish.
You can't base everything.
Why is it I get two words out, Arwin?
You can't
Why
base
is
all
that?
of science
Why is
on
it
a
that I
singular
manage to get two words
experiment,
out and you carry on talking? Why is that, Arwin?
Because you're wrong. It's just not true. You can't say there's only one cause. It's just not true. And I can pretty much prove that.
That's what science does. Hold on, I would like to reply. That's what science does, Arwin. It establishes the cause of an effect.
In an experiment.
Yeah, that's science.
Yeah, it's the cause in the experiment. Doesn't declare, okay.
And the point of the experiment is to establish the cause of the effect. That's why you do the bloody experiment.
Yeah, I know.
So we're establishing a cause then, aren't we, Arwin?
Yeah, you are. In the
Right. So once you've figured out what causes it, you know the cause.
Right.
Right. So why are you now going to do a rumpus on us and tell us that you can go and do a different experiment to establish the other cause?
Because it's true.
No. Once you have the cause, you have the cause. You have done experimentation to establish the cause of your effect. That's why you do it. Oh, did Arwin get kicked?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I think so. Can you not join on Skype or something?
I'm going to start a new Hangout. My wife's actually out, so the entire Hangout's been left with nobody being able to join because I think there's a sniper in the back chat, but I'll do a few admin things, end this show, start a new one with a new Hangout. So with that, I will say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate, and of course a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, then you know exactly what to do, but if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!